Globalization places a unique challenge on education. I propose that place-based education is a possible way in which we can respond to the challenges of globalization to enable local communities to thrive in the face of the challenges that a globalized workforce and a globalized economy mean. In this presentation, I'll break down and look at how globalization is a challenge for education. I will then look at how we can view place-based education in response to this. I'll look at how, from a global perspective, place-based education fits into the picture. And then, zooming in, I'm going to look at how culturally responsive practice responds to the place-based education. And I'll draw some conclusions about how this can help our students' achievement and help them to grow. Globalization presents a significant challenge to contemporary education. And we can see this with the literature which tells us that there is a range of challenges, particularly with disengaged students, as it suggests that the new world and its new challenges are not being sufficiently addressed by previous models of education. So, what is this challenge of globalization and how does it impact upon our students? So we see with things like the UNESCO Plan for Education that there is a desire and a movement towards helping students understand that they are global citizens. And this is recognizing and reflecting on cultural change, which is seeing a more integrated world through technology, through the way that we're living life. What does this mean for our students and for their learning? Well, it means that students need to be able to find their place in this world. One of the challenges of globalization is that it leaves students feeling isolated, and some of these top-down approaches to curriculum design and education leave the students decontextualized and wondering where they fit in the whole scheme. So how can we knit this together? How can we face this challenge? And there are several possible ideas here that we can work on from a sort of a response to this. And we see this particularly in place-based learning or problem-based learning. In an effort to authentically engage students, we seek to contextualize what they're learning from a global perspective and then bring that into the classroom and help the local curriculum to rise up and inform students. This is really challenging stuff because students are becoming more and more disconnected from their local communities and local places of education. This means they're disconnected from local sources of knowledge often. Now, some of the literature suggests that these challenges of globalization are even on an ontological, epistemological, a whole range of levels. I would suggest that probably it's more focused on an epistemological challenge. And I think that also arises from the challenges that we see around atomization of our students, being disconnected and treated as individuals in their places and in their society. From a global perspective? Well, it has many benefits, right, for our young people for learning. And so with the use of new technologies and new opportunities to bring students together from different cultures and different contexts, this allows us to explore new learning pedagogies and new ways of approaching learning that were never before possible. So globalization in one sense is a challenge, but in another sense is an opportunity. And so when we look at something like place-based learning, we can enable that in new ways through globalization. So learning about our place and then exposing that to the world in a way that allows us to interact and have a dynamic relationship between communities rather than having a monologue by a cultural hegemonic institution. So this allows us then, with place-based learning and the opportunities that come from that to really grow and develop our opportunities. This allows our students to really gather the rich knowledge and apply it in a real and authentic way. One of the issues about global approaches to problems is that you kind of lose the individual issue. Some of the literature spoke about issues like climate change. And while this has a global perspective, so globalization can respond to this on a global level, things like place-based learning allow for students to embody sustainable responses and to grow into an understanding of how to take ownership of these global issues in a personal way. And this is kind of like one of the benefits and opportunities of this kind of tension, if you will, between a global localism. And so this allows us to open up these opportunities in a new way and to create new learning opportunities that haven't been seen before. So an example I can use from my own teaching and my own practice is I recently developed a metaphor for assessment, which I drew on the local knowledge of a Pahudakawa tree. Starting with the image of the seeds, I showed the seeds moving into the roots, moving into the trunk of the tree, then into the flower, showing the development of the epistemology or the knowledge through which students could interact in my subject. And this use of local knowledge allows my students to connect with this space. This is, I think, when we look at this from like a global level, taking global challenges and putting them into the personal context allows for that. How does seeing place-based learning as a response to globalization fit into culturally reflective practice, and how do these things go together? Well, I see here this is a fantastic opportunity, and this is where I think place-based learning comes to the forefront. The benefits that we see from culturally responsive practice in terms of student engagement and things can be harnessed through using a place-based focus on education. I remember back at Teachers College, one of the lecturers who came and spoke about culturally responsive practice was very eloquent, but made a powerful point about the value of local knowledge. And that always stuck with me. And I think also too, our students, in terms of growing in their knowledge and understanding, if they can make use of the community, surrounding ideas, how can they sort of grow in that regard? And so also too, there's been questions about whether that is kind of critically responsive, and whether place-based learning can be intermeshed with critical responsiveness. Does it paint a too sunny a picture, if you will? Now, when we look at this culturally responsive practice, we can see that there's actually room for this movement here within place-based learning. It allows place-based learning to identify the challenges and the different perspectives around the home or the particular place, and then to bring that together in a way which helps harmonize our students' understanding their culture in the context of a broader culture. Not to squash one, but to maintain the diversity and the unity. So we're not trying to homogenize students like bad milk, but rather we're trying to bring out and draw the best out of our students through encouraging and connecting them to their local community. So how do we do this in a real way? So it's interesting, this is kind of where service comes into our students' lives in a big way here at Catholic Cathedral College. They go out and they work with places like Nazareth House, which have some elderly, which are connected to our community. And they've also worked with people from Marilameda, so people in the disability sector. And through working with these people, they have gained knowledge and insight that they themselves would not have gained had they not been connected to the community. And I think one of the things that's really powerful about place-based learning is coming out with a connection and an understanding of your local place. And culturally responsive practice seeks to harness that in our students. through understanding that pedagogies need to be responsive to students' cultural understandings, and that bringing those things to fruition in the classroom enables and enhances our students' education. So, to put it into a nutshell, place-based learning seems to be a wonderful stepping stone for culturally responsive practice into the challenges of globalization, enabling us to get the benefits of a global community and bring that and ground that in a particular location, so that it's not detached knowledge that belongs to someone else, but rather a local epistemology, a local way of knowing, which brings out the richness in our students. Place-based education can be a response to globalization in education. However, like anything, it's not a golden bullet. There are weaknesses and issues with this. As we've explored throughout this presentation, place-based education seeks to enable student engagement, which is declining due to hyper-globalized curriculum, and helps to bring a sense of identity and ownership to our students and provide real and authentic learning experiences, which is also incredibly important. So I think what we can see here is, well, place-based education isn't going to solve all our problems when it comes to globalization. It's a worthwhile investment and a worthwhile thing pursuing in the light of this challenge to enable our students to grow. And hopefully, in my own exploration of local curriculum and sort of some of these ideas displayed behind us, we can see the enhancement of student learning and a richer and deeper focus on the education for the sake of our learners. And that, I think, is a victory. Kia ora.